Hello, everyone. This is Mark from Digital Home Systems. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we have a somewhat shorter presentation. This is more of a providing a bit more information regarding a certain product. We've had a couple of questions regarding, which is actually the 8-channel input module made by Zconnect that we've recently started selling. So the actual 8-channel input module, I'll simply just refer to as the input module, is a bit different compared to your normal devices. People have confused it being relay devices previously, so they believed it was actually an 8-channel switch, but we've sort of providing a bit more information than what its actual purpose is inside a Z-Wave system. So firstly, the actual wiring schematic for the device. As you can see down the bottom, it actually has 8 inputs, including a common, a negative, and positive. This device runs off a 12 or 24 volt power supply, or it also runs off a battery, a C1450, which isn't actually shown in the display for it. This is what the device actually normally looks like. Little guy there. Currently have one inside the testing box, and this is what the internal battery compartment of the device actually looks like. So there's a little slot there to actually fit in the battery. Life expectancy for the device itself is around 4 years if you only press the button 2 to 3 times a day. So, of course, divide that whatever you need to. It does also accept 12 volt, 24 volt power supply as well, so low voltage, and essentially accepts your standard switch inputs. An example for this, I just have your average impress switches. It is worth noting that you should not mix the power supplies for them. As such, do not have a battery in there at the same time as you're powering up a 12, 24 volt supply into it, because it will cause the device to be damaged, as it will essentially run on both of them at the exact same time and essentially stuff up the battery compartment. Now, onto its actual purpose inside of a Z-Wave system. It is actually a direct association device. What that essentially means, as I referred to previously on a video we did regarding direct associations, is it does not actually require the controller to be operable or essentially involved in the communication between the devices at all. The controller only needs to be able to actually set the associations to the devices, set the parameters for the devices, and after that, it essentially just goes as is. It's useful for builds in such as areas where granny flats are an example, as you don't actually need to have a physical controller on site in order to actually run the functions for it. Now, the functions it actually does support is momentary buttons, essentially, as some of you may have found in regards to actual direct association devices. Push button switches, so momentary switches, aren't too great when you actually use them for association control. Main reason for it is most of the time, contacts become active, sends it on command, contact becomes deactive, sends it off command. What the actual input module does instead is allows you to actually change the parameters. And as such, you can use it so when you push the button in, it'll actually send an off command, as well as holding it down will cause multi-level devices such as dimmers to actually dim down. You can also set it to being turning on when you press the momentary switches, as well as dimming up, and then your actual standard bistable switches themselves. There is actually another option on there, which is the 4th option, which is scene control. Currently does not work on a Fibaro, and as such, I will not be covering that in this video. So as you can currently see our interface, we actually have essentially a little array of devices. Firstly, we have Cubino dimmer, which is located on the left-hand side, and also just a single Cubino relay on the right-hand side as well. So at the current point in time, we have 3 switches connected up. We have a standard push button, a toggle, and a toggle switch. As such, we're using a set of associations for it. The manual will contain all the associations required for this device. It does load into a Fibaro actually having all the associations and as well as a brief explanation for them. So as a perfect example, first we would need to actually look at the parameters of the device. I've just loaded them in by default to essentially give us an idea for it. As currently they're all set to 0 and as such are all detecting a momentary switch for them. What we actually want to do is change those to being toggles. So in referring to our slides, it is actually 2 for both of these. And we will leave the parameter 1 is your first input, parameter 2 is your second input, and parameter 3 is your third input. as I currently have it set up as being bear with me one moment. As I currently have it set up as a push button for momentary, putting it to 0 will make it so this will turn the lights off. Number 2 on our switch is a toggle, as well as number 3. So I'll leave these as are. Now, as I currently have this device running off the battery, I will actually need to wake up the device in order for it to actually receive its parameter commands. So bear with me 1 second. So after we wake up the device, which is done by a single button press, it will also, of course, tell us to refresh your interface. As you can currently see, it's changed our parameter values. Now, what we then need to do is we then need to actually set the associations for it. So to do that, you simply go to associations, choose our endpoint, which is 0, because there's only one device for it. And then, as you can see, it actually has a list of every single group ID that's available for it. So firstly, what we should do is set group 3, which is an on-off switch. Then we shall choose the device we want. So, for example, there could be no dimmer left for this one. And add that. It will, of course, ask us to actually reset the module, wake up the module in order to get to run. We'll simply skip that for the time being as we add the other parameters for it. So simply go to group 4, choose the switch we want to control with it, which is right. Once again, press on the add, skip that. Then pick number 5 for our switch 3, and we actually will set this to being both of them. Now, all we have to do is wake up the device. So after waking up the devices, it will actually load through all of our associations for it. So at the current point in time, when we actually flick on our switch 2, it will turn on the right switch. Same goes for number 3, but it will do both the left and the right. As you can see, the dimmer is slightly down. We can simply increase that to make it a bit more visible for you. And of course, we can turn that off as well. Now, the single switch that's currently being set will only turn the light off. So if we turn that back on, it's currently set to parameter 0, which means off when we press the single button. As you can see, that is turned off in the separate state from the right switch. So if we simply change that back, it will turn that one off as well. What you can also do with push buttons, because it actually detects the inputs for those, you can actually use them to dim up and down lights, as we saw previously. So what I'll simply just do is I will go to our device again. The parameters for it are all set as we currently want it, because we want it to be able to dim down the light, which is option 0. If we want to dim the light up, it would be option 1. We just need to go to our associations, delete the current association we have for group 3, as we don't want it to actually turn the light off. It will, of course, ask us to wake up the device again, but we simply actually want to set the multi-level for it. So group 11 is multi-level for switch 1. Choose our target device, which is our Cubino demo, and add a new one. We'll now wake up the device. So after waking up the device, you can now see that they've changed slightly. No longer a group 3, we instead have a group 11. So what we can actually just do for a demonstration is simply turn on the devices using the second relay, not third relay. As you can see, our dimmer is currently active. If I hold this button down for roughly half a second, it will dim down slightly. Unfortunately, you can't really see it due to the globe, but if I hold it down a little bit longer, it will dim down completely. And now that light is completely off. Not really, because it's simply just dimmed down to 1%, as you can see on the interface. So if we can dim that back up again, light will come up. We hold it down for a little bit and then release. Dims down slightly, holding it again, almost completely off. If you do have any further questions regarding anything that you saw in this presentation, feel free to contact us or give us a call. Primary email for me is mark@dhsys.com.au. If you have any general questions or inquiries, feel free to send them through to office@dhsys.com.au. Take care.